Welcome to Maker Camp. We've got a great show for you today, and there's so much for you to see.
Today's guests are members from the FLUX Foundation. Now, not only do they make great art, but they make artists. We're going to see some of their massive creations that they have that have been a collaboration amongst a large community all across the nation. We're going to check out their shop, see some of the things that they built, some of the things that you might have seen at Maker Faire or other festivals.
And today's project, the solitary bee condos.
So get excited, get ready, because we're going to make something great.
Welcome back to week 2 of Maker Camp. I'm Camp Director Paloma.
And I'm Camp Director Burke. We're really excited to have you here, as always, as week 2 rolls on with art and design. So, if you have any questions or comments as we progress through the rest of the show, don't forget the internet is a two-way street. Have them ready, because we'll put them on the Google Plus Maker Camp community page, and we'll take a look at them later in the hour.
And if you want to possibly appear live on the Hangout with us in the future, go to makercamp.com and fill out the form.
Now, before we get to today's guests, why don't we check out with our camp counselors so we can see what's with the daily project.
Hey, counselor, how's it going?
How's it out?
Pretty good, and you?
Pretty good. I'm excited to see what you have for us today.
Yeah.
Well, hi, I'm Councillor Pierre, and we will show you some videos on the photos of your projects. So first, at the Dixie 4H campus are soldering.
Yeah, soldering's a great thing to start off with. It's perfect for doing various different different projects. Very easy to start with as well. You can get complex with the robot that you built.
Yeah. That's great, and they seem very happy to do that. Yeah. Oh, then makers at Washington Maker Workshop are making compressed air rockets.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, they're great for young makers especially. They always turn out really fun.
I know we have a bunch of them in the lab too, so they're always going off around here.
Mm-hmm. And then Harry has posted a beautiful panorama from Montreal.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, Harry's been posting a lot of art lately. I really like the GIF that he posted yesterday. So go to the Maker Camp community page to check that one out too.
Yeah. And then here is a fountain from our friends at Cedes in Costa Rica.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know how it works.
We'll show you later, Pierre.
Oh, yeah.
So tell me about today's project.
Alright, so the daily project for today is the solitary bee condos. It's a very simple project, great for makers of all ages. All you need is just kind of a piece of wood, some bamboo or tubes, and you glue them in rows or whatever pattern you want. You just need a way for the bees to be able to get in and out. And the tip for this project for today is to, once you've built your bee condo, is to leave it outside where you can get early morning sun, but it should stay relatively covered because you don't want to get rain and you don't want the bees to get too hot.
Okay.
Great. I think that one will be super fun. Can't wait to see campers posting them on the page. And I think I already saw one this morning. Somebody got a head start and posted theirs on the community page.
Oh, yeah. But post your pictures and video, and we'll share them on the Hangout tomorrow. Over to you at Maker Camp HQ.
Thanks so much, counselors. I love that we're getting to see some of those photos because I'm always checking them out online, but I'm very happy to be able to share them with our viewing audience as well. But I'm going to bring on our first guest. I'm very excited about this guest. We have the people from the FLUX Foundation, which is a collaboration of artists that work on these large-scale public art projects. They're really great. We've got some pictures of them. They go anywhere from like out in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, all the way through to Maker Camp. So I'm really excited to bring them on. I just want to go ahead and welcome Jessica Hobbs and Tuin Chilamchirana. So thank you so much for joining us.
We're glad to be here.
Glad to be here. Good morning.
Morning.
How's it going out there?
We're having fun. We're just we're excited to talk to some people about what we do, and yeah, and share.
And a little bit about how we got here,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm excited to learn about it too.
Yeah,
You
so-
guys do great work.
Yeah, I mean, it's really incredible. I mean, just the scale and the amount of people that you get to collaborate. Jessica, why don't you give us a rundown of the work that happens at FLUX Foundation?
So a little bit about Flux. We are a nonprofit, and we build. Well, we used to say large-scale work, but we work in multi-scales. We build art together in a collaborative method. Our shop is open, so anybody can come and build the projects with us. You can see we actually have a few of the projects up behind us, and we have some pictures online. All of these projects were built by at least 50 people or more. We go out and we seek opportunities to display stuff like this, and then we invite the community to come into our shop. And the key component is you don't have to know how to use any tools. You just have to have the enthusiasm for learning, because we figure, learning and teaching, that's the easy part. And we teach woodworking tools, metal tools, electronics. Am I missing something?
Arduino things,
Yeah.
a lot of things that you guys do in Maker Camp, I'm sure.
And then with that big group of people, we build all of these amazing projects together.
Awesome.
Wow.
I love what you do.
So you're starting from zero. I can just walk in and have, I have ideas and I'm enthusiastic, but I don't have the skills. And I can start from there and build something like that?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
So, just to jump off of that, I know that some of the people that are involved in your organization start with no tool training. Some of them have never really been or experienced, being a full-on artist and making full-scale projects. How do you kind of get through that? Like, what was your individual path as a maker, and how do you take someone who has that little skill level and bring them up to these large-scale projects?
Well, my path as a maker, I think I'm a little unique. I grew up with, I think it really starts where I grew up. So my family, we built our own house. So as I was growing up, there was this thing kind of in constant process and expansion and building, and these tools were always around me. So I had that kind of happening consistently. And then also my parents, I think, were big advocates of art, so I always had a drawer of art that my sister and I could just go to, and my mom and my dad would kind of constantly stock it with different objects, paper, new art things, and so we always had something we could go to. It was always an open thing. We didn't really have to ask permission. It was just always okay to go make things. And then my path, kind of when I got older into education, I was kind of always bridging science and art, but when I kind of committed to a pathway in college, I decided to do art and community, art and sociology, and I've kind of just, that path has always sort of led me to want to combine the two, and that's kind of how I really gravitated towards doing large-scale community art.
And for me, it was complete happenstance. So I have 10 fingers still, which is a success. And basically, for me, I was first generation Asian, and stereotypically, I was supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer. But my parents were always really supportive of what I was doing. And when I went to college, a liberal arts school, I actually ended up moving away from science and things like that and became a poet, and worked in the dark for a long time. And then when we moved out to the Bay, I've been a stay-at-home dad now for 15 years with 2 daughters, 12 and 15. And as they got older, I was looking for something to do, and I ended up just at the Flux shop one day, never having worked with power tools before, and ended up volunteering to help out in the tool shed. And as I learned from really master craftspeople how to use their tools and service them and keep track of them, I ended up on our Temple project, which is the first Flux project you might see some pictures of out there, which is a massive, massive piece for instance, 22,000 square feet of just surfacing material. So I ended up helping to manage that process and codify sort of what we did with these tools as volunteers came in. And so in doing so, I basically learned all about tools, all about sort of the education process of new people coming on and having them retain all of their fingers. Essentially, at this point, 4 years later, I'm managing our shop and our metal and wood shop, and then actually managing a lot of the builds, and then starting to get into design. And I guess what really drew me into sculptural and visual art was the fact that you could really affect and reach not only tons of people in the designing and building process, but actually once you were showing, it wasn't a piece of paper with 20 lines of poetry. It was a huge sculpture that shot fire or inspired people to do things similarly to that. So that's been a really big shift for me that's come from working with Flux.
Wow, that's so inspiring that you started with, without this huge, maker, push behind you. You just had a passion and just went for it, starting with this huge art installation. So I think that's really inspiring for campers. You don't have to always start small. If you want to make a giant art installation, you can do it, and you can be safe about it too. So that's really inspiring to all of us.
Yeah, I think what's really great about this is just getting that many people to work together. I'm actually really interested in knowing a little bit more about that and how if I show up, walk up to the shop and just go, I want to help out. What's the process? What happens next?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we say is yes, come on in. I think a lot of places don't necessarily tell you yes right away. So that's the first way we really, we tell you to come in. We said come in and help. We give you a tour of the shop. We ask you what you want to learn. We don't always say, like, it's a two-way street. So you're coming to our shop to help us, and we're also trying to help you learn something or achieve a goal or, learn about art in a new way. We really try to think about leadership and learning in our shop is horizontal. So it's a two-way street. Like maybe somebody is directing a project, but they're also willing to learn from somebody who just walked in. You never know what somebody who comes into the shop knows. They might have this wealth of knowledge that's going to open up a new part of the project.
And one thing that I found in building large-scale sculptures is that there's a lot of iterations, and there's a lot of repetitious work. So often what would happen to me was I would give someone the little worksheet that I had that said, here's how you use a paintbrush, and here's how you make the paint, and here's how you put it on. But often I'll double back after an hour and ask the volunteer, so what have you learned that could help us with the next person who comes on? So I found that a lot of times someone who's quote-unquote down in the trenches learns a lot about a process that I wouldn't necessarily know about. And it really behooves us as a group to take that sort of general knowledge and the more specific knowledge, let's say, that someone has developed in doing the work, to say, you know what, it's easier if you do it this way. And so that, I think, was both valuable and value-added and made people really feel like they're part of the crew. Additionally, I think that when you're building something that's really big, you have sort of our general design goal, general idea of what's going to happen, and then once you're really doing it, it would often turn out that you don't have time to go back to that person, right? So that person would say, is this okay? Is this done? Is this what you thought would happen? And I would look at it running by and say, you know what, that looks great, carry on. And so what ends up happening is that as a volunteer, you end up taking ownership of certain parts of a piece and really feel as though that's your art when you're done with it, because you made certain decisions. You chose colors or shapes or materials in a way that as sort of the seminal designers, we didn't know would happen. And I think that being open to those changes is something that's really different in the way that we work our process collaboratively, that you aren't collaborating on just, filling this one part out, but you're really adding to it and figuring out how best to present it, what looks the best aesthetically, and what may work with the larger whole.
That's a really good point that you brought up. I really want to underline that, the idea of openness to new ideas and new concepts, because I would think that a lot of our campers, their idea of collaboration might be a bit skewed. At least for me, when I was in high school, a lot of collaborative projects were you were just assigned with people and kind of not always worked out very much. But what I think is really important, what you're sharing with us today, is that collaboration is actually a fantastic way to work with people as long as the openness to trying something new and that attitude is there with everyone that's on board.
Yeah, and as long as everybody really shares that passion, I think that you can push past a lot of problems. And I also really love, and I think it's really important what you're doing, is that you're not only providing this amazing art for the people around you, you know, I mean, looking at the pictures, they're just visually stunning, but you're also providing a space that allows people to grow and learn and develop their skills in kind of like a judgment-free zone. It's not, you know, you're not expecting them to have all this knowledge already. You're allowing them to learn and express themselves in really interesting ways. So, you know, I thank you for that. That's really important.
Yeah, that's really great.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
And speaking of education, you guys have TweetHaus, this project that you brought with us, that you want to be able to basically bring art projects into schools. Tell me about the inspiration of that project and how you came up with it and what your expectations are.
Well, TweetHaus, what's really wonderful about TweetHaus is unfortunately the two women who sort of were the idea generators, Elizabeth Marley and Jennifer Blakesley, they couldn't join us today. But what was wonderful is these were just two women who were a part of our group. They were excited about this idea. They kind of brought it to the group. And we were able, as a group, to really get it into schools. We've worked with Park Day so far to develop the program. And so what it is TweetHaus, kind of in a nutshell, is we go into schools or other smaller educational situations and we build birdhouses. But the birdhouse, it's just, you know, that's the simple thing. But through that, we also teach ecology about the birds themselves and what they eat and their environment. We teach architecture because the students actually have to build their houses. We teach collaboration because they actually have to collaborate in groups of 4 to 5 to build their houses. And then they also learn the process of iteration and prototyping. So they have to build it in paper, they have to build it again in paper, maybe then step up to cardboard. And once they kind of get a really solid final design, then we step up to the final wood product. And then we've been working with people like Oakland Parks and Rec, and these birdhouses are now in public parks. So now these students have also become public artists.
I love that, and I love that they're all different. You know, they're not just cookie cutter houses that you would expect. You know, these kids are really thinking outside of the box and creating their own sculpture and their own idea of what a birdhouse should be.
They have some really, really big ideas sometimes, and it's definitely sort of interesting for us as builders to try and figure out how and what materials to use to sort of get to their vision. I think that's a really good learning process for them as well when we get to the day where we say, well, we wanted this thing to be a globe, but we can't really make things completely round out of wood, so it's going to be more like a soccer ball, let's say. And I think that's a really good process for them as well. One thing I did want to say that that I didn't before, which is that we have also really expanded the idea, I think, of artists in our crew, because this is an example of two artists who didn't know, let's say, how to get it into the schools, and we have people who are artists of funding or artists of administration or artists of contracts, and these sort of things that you don't really think of as artistry, but if I had to try and come up with the money to do a project or to talk to the right schools or the park people to get these things installed, I wouldn't know where to start. And the people who are part of our group who can do these things make it look like art. And I have to say that that is an artistry in and of itself, to creatively think, to creatively meet people, and to get these things to where the thing that we typically consider art can actually be made.
That's a really good point. And you know, on that note, I want to thank everyone behind the scenes at Maker Camp, because I mean, we couldn't do this without all of them either. And what they do really is passion driven and artistic as well. So I think that's really a good way to look at it too. Is that everyone behind a project is their own artist, and they have their own passion and their own drive, and I think that that's really great.
Yeah, is there a specific example you're thinking of that really stood out, or perhaps the moment you realized that that's the kind of art that others can create?
I think for me, for instance, I kind of like to talk about everyone's secret ninja skill, which is to say that we're really great about, oh, you should learn how to use this tool, or you should learn how to design, or what have you. But when we're running to complete something and have a very short deadline and limited funds and all that, then I sort of like to call everyone for their secret ninja skill and say, you know what, learning's great, but right now we need you to do this thing that we know that you're amazing at. So for me, on a job site often, I'm the guy who runs around and makes sure that everyone has what they need to make the thing. So sometimes I come away exhausted and I think, you know what, I didn't draw or nail or paint a single thing today. All I did was figure out where the ice was, figure out how to get power to the job site. Oh no, we're out of gas, we don't have enough nails. And I'll come back thinking, gosh, I don't think I did anything today, but other people will come and thank me and say, oh my gosh, if you hadn't gotten that cubic yard of lumber in here in that period of time, we never would have gotten it done. And so I think that thanking each other and being aware of the fact that what you may consider at first an art or a skill isn't necessarily what's going to come out of it, and what you're going to realize you're being utilized for could be very different from what you thought going in.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like area managers at Maker Camp.
I've been an area manager at Maker Faire, actually. So
oh
yes.
Yeah, Maker Faire, right? Yeah. I think I've seen you there. Yeah, area managers. It's another behind-the-scenes thankless job, but they make sure that Maker Faire runs totally smooth and that everybody gets what they need. And I don't think Maker Faire would not run without area managers. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah. It's really important to have that understanding that when you start a big project that's not just about you, you're going to be picking up or wearing different hats during the process, and that's normal. And I think that's really great to instill in people who've never taken on a big collaborative project before. Is there a take-home for some of our campers out there? Is there a take-home lesson that you would like to tell our community out there about? Maybe this is the first time they would ever collaborate with a group of people. Like, what would be a great thing to start off with?
Well, I mean, collaboration's one. I'm passionate about collaboration. I call myself, versus just an artist, I call myself a collaborative artist. I think collaboration's a beautiful thing because you might have this one grain of an idea, and maybe you draw it in your sketchbook, and maybe you on your own could build it. But what's beautiful about collaboration is that seed gets planted, and something grows out of it beyond your expectations. So putting all those people into the mix, like this art piece that you never even imagined happened. Like none of you individually could have imagined the art piece that happened. And that's the beauty and the strength of collaboration, is doing something beyond yourself. It's kind of that bigger picture thing. It's that wonderful, idea that we can do something monumental. Even if we don't have it within ourselves, we have it within our community or the people surrounding us.
I guess one interjection is that she said, I think your words were something to the effect of something that came out of your idea, your seminal idea, your kernel, your seed. And I would have to say that my cautionary tale is that something sometimes grows despite that, which is to say you have this amazing idea and you start to, and it's sort of what we call in design like your darling. And you might end up finding that if you give it its head and it grows on its own, it's not a flowering vine, it's a tree. But you have to, at some point, release your idea of it being a flowery vine to let the collaboration happen and to have the thing grow into a tree when you thought it was going to be a vine. And then have the sort of wherewithal to stand back and go, oh my God, it's an amazing tree, when it could have been kind of a cool vine.
Yeah, so collaboration really does, an important thing in collaboration is you do have to kind of separate your own ego.
Yes.
And you have to look at the bigger picture. And sometimes that there's frustration in that, and that's okay.
Right.
Because through that frustration, maybe some mistakes happen, but mistakes are always information. Like that's what that's a big thing we like to say in Flux is mistakes aren't detrimental, mistakes aren't bad, mistakes are just information.
As long as you keep all your fingers.
Yeah.
That's a great first step. Keep your fingers and toes.
And I think most people who have worked on a group project in school have sort of experienced what happens when you have someone who, say, the quiet person versus the very loud person and the type A personality in the group. And sometimes it's really hard to be heard and to sort of feel like you're happy with your grade at the end of that time because, you know, someone was really bossy pants and pushed their idea all the way through. And I think that we work really hard with our group, and the lesson is to sort of, you know, tone down the bossy pants and try and hear what the quiet people have to say. And realize, for instance, I was working with someone who's been a pipe fitter for 40 years, and we got into this problem dealing with our methanol flame effect. And Sterling says, well, I actually have a graduate degree in chemistry. I'm a chemist. And I said, what? You're a chemist? Get over here. So there's things like that where people don't speak up necessarily, and then you have to be ready to hear that this quiet guy who's in the corner welding actually has, you know, a master's degree in chemistry and can help us with our methanol effect.
Yeah, there's his secret ninja skill right there.
Right there, yeah. Yeah. And all of our campers I know out there have secret ninja skills. I'm sure they'll, if you want, you could post that on there and let us know. Do you have a secret ninja skill?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Campers, let's see your secret ninja skill.
It would be great to know like what kind of range of like talents or skills we have out there, even if you think it's just a little skill.
Especially if it's a literal ninja skill.
Yeah,
I wanna see your literal ninja skills as well. And I actually have one question that I'm really interested about because your large-scale projects are so beautiful and interesting.
Oh, yeah, they're wonderful.
I'm like obsessed with them, and I've seen yours at Maker Faire for sure. But I also, you know, you take these all over the country, from everywhere in like weird climates, like in the middle of the desert, all the way through to places like Maker Faire. And so, what are some of the challenges that come from moving that large-scale project all over the place, and from building something so large?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you draw this on paper, and then you build it, but you actually have to break it down. So it has to like come apart in pieces, and we usually use 20-foot shipping containers to ship all of our work. So it's actually like an elaborate game of Tetris to figure out how all these pieces can nest in each other and how many joints they need. And
so, for instance, I think you guys can see right now the beginning of the temple build, which we built for Burning Man. It's the sort of spiritual center of the city. I can see a picture on my screen. And that, for instance, we built in about 3 months in our studios in West Oakland. But because of the scale, it was never completely assembled. We built 5 separate pieces, and they shipped out to the desert on 5 flatbeds. So 5 tractor trailers of material went out to the desert, and we were probably, 3 to 4 hours from the nearest Home Depot? Mm-hmm. So every single thing that we thought we would need, including water, food, shelter, and building materials, all had to be thought of ahead of time by Katie and other people whose skill set is that sort of a thing, so that when we got out there, we could build for 2 weeks without running out of things.
And really, with those projects, another key component to not only the piece breaking down, but also the group itself having specific work pods. So we have, groups that specialize. We have, our metal heads, which focus on just metal structures. We have our woodchucks, and we like to give each other fun names too. It makes it more interesting. So the woodchucks really focus on wood structure. You have our fire hussies, which are the people that focus on the plumbing and all the flame effects. You also have groups like BOMB, which are the bad,
we can't say it.
We can't say that. The bad tushes of management and business. And they focus on all of the kind of the paperwork, administration, shipping, moving. Then what else? We have design.
Yeah. We have our geeks who program and build all of their stuff from paper. which I couldn't believe. They made incredible Arduino lighting and LED, everything from circuit boards that started out as paper. And for instance, this piece, which we showed at Maker Faire 2 years ago, that took 7 crews, of which I had to try and do flight control, which is keeping track of what everyone's doing. So that was 7 crews in 3 different shops in Oakland over the course of 3 months to get to that point. And I guess the finishing point was when we showed it at Maker Faire, we had hand-built foot pedals for our flame effects, and in 3 hours every morning, all of you kids were going through 250 gallons of propane.
Wow.
Yes.
Crazy.
And we couldn't have any more because the fire marshal said you were only allowed to have 250 gallons of fuel in one place at a time.
Well, I think that's a great endorsement in any sense of the word. Maker Faire, where you go through too much propane.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
All right.
we
Well,
think we don't have enough.
Yes, we could use more.
we could always use more. And I think that's also a great take-home message. There's not too much propane.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Jessica and Tuan, thank you so much for coming out for Maker Camp and speaking to us today. I certainly learned a lot, and actually I kind of want to go check out one of your shops in Oakland. I feel like I could swing a hammer around for you guys.
Great. Anytime.
Awesome. All right, so we're getting a lot of questions coming in from campers and everything today, and keep them up, by the way. Just because we have a few in now, keep posting to our community page. Get that information out there. Anything you want to answer, we'll have these questions coming up soon. But right now, we're going to take a little short break right after this.
So yeah, so now we get to the sort of question.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us again. We have some of the people from the FLUX Foundation with us today, and we are just about to take some of your questions. So keep posting them on the community page, but we're going to throw on over to the counselors. Counselors, what questions do we have?
Hey, so Brandon asks, what is your favorite project? What is the more exciting one, and also what was the biggest one you did?
Okay, so I think one of the most exciting ones is ZOA, which you can see the picture behind me, and maybe we'll also get one that comes up that you can see. ZOA was a really amazing project.
There it is.
So here you can see this is the wood part of ZOA. So ZOA was a project that happened in 3 parts. It had a wood part. We burned that part. It had a hidden sculpture underneath. And then we, in one day, transformed ZOA into a fire piece. So ZOA was a project that happened in 3 parts. It was really difficult, really interesting. It pushed us. It challenged us to learn a lot of new things. It was really great. It's a wonderful project.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Do you want to talk about it?
Great.
And he also wanted to know what was your biggest one, the biggest project you made.
Our biggest project was the first piece, of course, that we started, which was the temple at Burning Man. Essentially, the quick aside is that Burning Man has more or less 2 main sculptures every year. One is the man himself, and then the temple, which is sort of the spiritual center of the city. And so we first got together, and you're seeing pictures of that now, to build this piece. That's the on-site build crew. It took about 2 weeks to build on site, but we first built and took everything apart in Oakland over the course of about 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then shipped everything out to Burning Man on 5 flatbed tractor trailer loads, and had a build crew of nearly 200 by the time we were done out in the desert. And that represents, if you just see the flat surfacing material, that's 22,000 square feet of whitewashed material that just covers the main structure. When we were done, people had brought talismans. There were ashes of parents and friends and photos, and they basically covered that piece with their memories and homages to certain people and places in their lives. You see a picture there. So it was really a very heavy and spiritual and centered thing to do for our community. And that year it was probably about 50,000 people. And that's at the end, the last burn that happens on Playa, and you'll get the entire camp of 50,000 people surrounding it, and it's silent. You can't hear anything except for the fire for about an hour, I guess.
Yeah, and so we burn the structure at the end. So it's a real beautiful monumental burn. And that's kind of a way to respect everybody's mementos that have been placed there throughout the week. We kind of release it with the burn.
Wow, and I saw some pictures of that on your website as well. And campers, if you want to see more detailed pictures, definitely check out their website after the show, because there's some really beautiful pictures of it really well lit, and oh gosh, it was
just tip of the iceberg, really. We got a lot more on.
Yeah, I mean, you guys brought over so many pictures. We can't even if we played them throughout the entire show, you wouldn't see all of them because there's so many beautiful pictures of your work. So definitely check out their website after the show and get a closer look of all that. And I want to jump back over to the counselors because we want to get your questions in. So counselors, can we hear another question?
So we have a question from Skylar. He's asking, how many projects do you have up, and is there any place that our fellow campers can go and see them?
So we have 13 projects we've completed. There's only one piece in a private collection right now. A lot of what we do is temporary work. So it's on-site for a certain amount of time, then we take it down, it travels somewhere else, or we get a commission for a new piece, we build that, and that travels somewhere else, or it's in a container in our shop. So unfortunately, we don't have anything up we just have one thing on a private property right now. So pictures are the best way to experience our work. Also sending us questions, asking us more about what we do. Yeah, the TweetHauses are up in Oakland in Mosswood Park, but those are small scale. Those are smaller scale, but they're really beautiful nonetheless.
Great, and if you want to check out the instructions for the TweetHaus project, you can go to the Maker Camp Google Plus community page, and we're going to go ahead and post a link to that on there as well, so you can really see that project up close and personal. And I could honestly, I say this all the time, but I could talk to you guys all day. Your work is so beautiful and inspiring, especially the amount of collaboration that you have on it. And I really just want to thank both Jessica and Tuin for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. And I also really want to thank our campers for joining in. Your questions are always very interesting and fun, and your interaction on the Google Plus page is just the favorite part of my day. I love seeing what you guys are posting on there and how much you're enjoying the camp.
Yeah, you're definitely making that community as strong as the ones that we're showing out here today, which I think is fantastic. Yeah, extra special thanks everyone, and really focusing on the idea that collaboration is not something that they force you to do in class. It's something that actually can be really inspirational and invigorating, and you can learn something about yourself that you never would have thought that you could do. And yeah, extra special thanks for that. I think that this really carries it home.
Yeah, and I'm just going to pop in there. There's some really great collaboration happening on the Camper Hangouts, which happen after the show ends. So if you want to jump onto those and you have some questions about the project you're working on, it's a really great place to ask your questions and try out your projects. So check out the Camper Hangouts that are run by Ashley as well.
All right, and plus, coming up tomorrow, get excited because we're going to have a 3D printing day. It's going to be fantastic. First off, we're going to meet with Carla Diana, the author of Leo the Maker Prints, and after that, we will have Jessica Rosenkrantz from Nervous System.
I'm so excited for that.
It's going to be great,
It's going to be a great show, so make sure you tune in tomorrow. And, campers, if you were inspired by any of the amazing art projects that you saw today, remember, do try this at home. Bye, campers.
Take care.